welcome everybody to a look in the future, where we ask, what would you do if you can go into the future and ask yourself questions? How do you grow your firm? How do you transition to advisory services and more? Well, luckily, we can just ask the time traveler himself, Paul Latham, and learn the knowledge we need at our firms today to evolve in advisory services and become the most relevant advisor to our clients. That's the key word we keep talking about. As always, I'm Garrett Wagner, your entrepreneurial CPA channel host. And as always, I'm privileged to be joined by Paul Latham of Haydenrock Solutions. Now, Paul, today we're going to talk about making this transition to being the most relevant advisor and proactivity, because as we were just talking about behind the scenes, the technology is there. The trouble firms run into is how do they get their people there? So love to hear from you. You already did this at Latham. How do you get your people there to be proactive?
Yep, that's a really good question, Garrett. Hello to everybody. Yeah, this is an interesting subject. We talk about the time traveling thing, and obviously we're relating back to my experience at Latham's 20 odd years ago. And by the way, the truth is that the way you manage people today is different to the way you manage people 20, 30 years ago. So let's just get that out of the way first. I mean, when we did this back at Latham's in the 1990s, the world was in a place where, it's all about leadership. And the way leaders worked was what I today call command and control, which is you tell people what to do and you give them instructions. And for whatever reason, in the 20th century, employees basically dutifully did as they were told. Today, essentially, employees need to be involved. They need to understand. They need to understand the reasons why, and they want to be more collaborative and involved in the process. And so you've got that change anyway. And essentially, this whole question of how you change the team comes back to having a sort of shared vision. I mean, for example, yes, Gareth, I was with a client yesterday, nothing to do with an accounting firm, nothing whatsoever to do with an accounting firm. He had a particular IT business. He was a really bright guy, entrepreneur, doing well, a few million of revenue, good profits. But in his business, his business was having to pivot. He was basically moving away from being, if you like, transactional in nature to being more of a managed service to the clients, which you could say was analogous to proactivity. And what became really obvious in that conversation yesterday was that whilst the owner had worked out this was what we needed to do, he really hadn't talked to his team about this was what we needed to do. And he certainly hadn't given them clear guidance in terms of, what should we even say to the clients? What's the script, if you like? What's the value proposition? How do we actually in practice make this pivot? And you see, I think a lot of business owners, and I would include, accounting partners in this, they don't recognize that whilst they may be able to do it themselves, the team do need some guidance. And, going back to that conversation that we had sort of right at the beginning, talking about command and control and collaboration. What's a really, really, really common trait these days? I do lots and lots of vision workshops with business owners and, again, substitute accounting partners. They tend to manage by a combination of command and control, tell their people what to do, and collaboration. And it's sort of an inevitably bad mix, because what it really says is, on Monday, I'm going to tell you what to do. And on Tuesday, I expect you to use your initiative and collaborate. And on Wednesday, I'm going to tell you what to do. And on Thursday, I'm going to expect you to use your initiative. And by Friday, you're really confused. And so, first of all, you get to this place where I think the accounting partner has to say, well, I can't do it that way. I can't keep telling people what to do because it isn't an effective way anyway. But they do need a clear message of what to do. So how do we do that? And essentially what we're really talking about is substituting process and clear guidelines and clear process. So you use the word proactivity. Well, that needs a script with the client. What does that mean then? What do we actually say? And then if you can substitute that very clear guidance, that actually means that whether it's with the other partners in the accounting firm or whether it's with the team, we all have a way of doing it. And what that does is it builds confidence. I always think back, by the way, to one of my sort of He was a sort of junior partner in my accounting firm. His name was Ian, and he lacked confidence, and he wasn't very good at selling stuff, and basically didn't know how to do it. And there was a whole period of time where we just kept exhorting Ian, do it, do it, do it, and he didn't do it. And then eventually the sort of penny dropped, and we sort of said, okay, let me write you out a script. Let me give you, here's how I would do it, written down, chapter and verse, step by step. And what that did was it gave Ian confidence, because he suddenly thought, okay, well, Paul's told me to do this, I'm going to do it. And that gave him the confidence to sort of take the first steps. And you see, Ian probably went from being, 3 or 4 out of 10 good at being proactive with his clients. And he certainly wasn't a superstar by the end, but he got to 7 or 8 and a pretty consistent performer. And that was all because we'd given him the tools to have the conversation, and he sort of knew what to say. And I think, in terms of your original question, Garrett, you cannot just expect your team to understand what proactivity means or what to say to the clients. You've really got to give them and put the effort in to sort of give them the standard message. Here's how we do it. Here's what they're likely to say. Here's how you respond, and so on. And that will it'll do a couple of things. It'll build their confidence, and it'll instill habits. And what it ultimately means is the process takes over from the need to provide command and control, because the process is the command and control. It's a pretty waffly answer, but hopefully it made some sense, Garrett.
Paul, it makes sense. And I think with that, I'm going to quote you back to you here. Ultimately, it comes down to vision, plan, desire. Yes. And what I see as well is this command and control versus collaborative leadership. It's because there's no clear vision. Like, they might have it in their head, and if they say it, the people in the organization don't truly get it and embrace it internally.
Well, I think you see, and there is a subtle difference between vision and plan. So, it's sort of easy to say, as the managing partner, let's say, I get it. We've got to be forward looking. We've got to be proactive. We've got to add value. That's the vision. But the plan is where you then go into detail on that. Because that, one of my phrases is a vision is a mile wide and an inch deep. So it's really simple to say forward looking, proactive, add value. There's no it's a clear vision, but it's not substantive. But then when you get to the plan part of it, okay, so now let's get into detail. So what do we mean by the word proactive? How are we going to speak to the client to get that message over? How are we going to make that feel real? And then the desire word is, well, that takes a bit of effort, because, that isn't 2 minutes of a job. That, just scripting a conversation, it's probably 2 or 3 hours of a job. And then you've got to teach those people how to say it. I mean, again, yesterday, because where we started with this whole conversation with that particular business owner, he had a value proposition, and I'd seen it, and I'd seen it even written on the website. And I said to him, okay, let's just imagine that he had 4 salespeople. I said, just imagine we got your 4 guys individually into a room and then said to them, give me the 1-minute elevator version of why I should change my service to this new proposition. I said, what do you think would happen if we got them individually into the room, said, give me the 1-minute pitch. I got my iPhone out and just videoed them. And we did that individually without any sort of, pre-warning or notes. And then we got them all back in the room together, and we played those 4 videos back. Do you think they'd be saying the same words? And he said, not a chance, not a chance. And so, you look there and you say, well, this is an element of the plan. So we have to put some time and effort into actually scripting the words. And, I do this all the time. It takes hours. It doesn't take seconds or minutes. It takes hours. But then you've got to actually drill it into people. And that means, videoing them, coaching them, role play, all that stuff. Keep going until they're comfortable. Because if they're not comfortable, they won't say it. And there's a little rule as well that says, to build a habit is, I think, meant to take about 6 weeks. if you cannot expect someone to build a habit in 6 minutes or 6 hours, but if they keep doing it for more than 6 weeks, it probably becomes a habit. So this is, playing you back there, Gareth. You're absolutely right. So your vision is to be forward-looking and proactive and add value, but you've got to put effort in. You've got to script it out. You've got to put process in, and then you've got to put the work in to make sure your team understands it. If they don't, honestly, you're wasting your time.
Paul, that's an interesting thought there. It makes sense. I think the interesting challenge for CPA firms and practitioners watching is similar to that. Ask everyone in your firm, no matter where you are now, whether you're proactive or reactive, where do you think in this continuum? Just ask everyone in your firm, like, what's that 60-second elevator speech?
Yeah.
And I think that's gonna be really eye-opening of how many people just balk and like,
It's a real, honestly, it's a little thing I've been doing for over 20 years. And I mean, the great news is nowadays we have iPhones that can do this. Yeah. Back in my day, we had to get, those great big cine things and sort of almost like a, video somebody. It was sort of an exercise. These days, it's incredibly easy, but it's an illuminating, as you said, eye-opening. It's absolutely eye-opening to business owners when they hear their so-called sales team trying to repeat the mantra of what they should be saying. And the truth is, I would say more than 9 times out of 10, massive inconsistency, classic sign of an in-between zone business, classic sign of a plate spinning business, classic sign of a business that is not going to be able to sort of drive, change, because they can't, they don't get off first base when it comes to putting consistency into their business.
Yeah, that would be really, I encourage everybody watching, do that inside your practice, from the partners to the administrator. Everyone kind of see what they're going to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, just as a warning, don't do that unless you are prepared to put the effort in to then correct it, because it's pretty demoralizing to just do it, because I can promise you they'll all say different things. I guarantee you they'll all say different things. So the outcome is known before you start. Obviously, that then is the jolt where everyone says, okay, we've got to do something. But in which case you really have to deliver. There's no point, taking people 2 steps into the water and then say, oh, by the way, we're not going to teach you how to swim. That's a problem. So, only do this if you have the desire to actually put the yards in to make the necessary changes.
So that's what Paul just said. Be ready with the desire to become proactive. That's how you get past the in-between zone, and you really become the most relevant advisor to your clients. So as always, thank you everybody for watching. And if you want to see where your firm fits on this continuum and what kind of leader you are, take a minute, sign up for your own free biz survey and get an objective assessment of how prepared you are for the future. It's a special offer for watching the show. We'll provide you the results of your biz score and a quick follow-up meeting to see where you stand. There's a link below. I encourage everyone to take the test. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget, you can click to subscribe to the channel. And as always, we challenge you today to take action to change the world and invest in yourself.